Hello and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I'm your host, Demosthenes, and with me, as always, is Mr. Kyle Nash up to bat. How's it going, Kyle?
Listen, I'm loving this episode because you're actually going to live up to the everything by default, even outside of your comfort zone, just a wee little bit there.
Well, I will admit that sports as a genre is just a bit outside my usual go-to.
It's just a bit outside.
Just a bit outside. Of course, of course, baseball season is upon us, and we decided to celebrate by going to one of Kyle Nash's favorite films, 1989's Major League, starring Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Corbin Bernsen, Bob Uecker, Wesley Snipes, Rene Russo. God damn, this had an interesting cast, and a lot of the big name actors that we know today, Rene Russo, Wesley Snipes, they were relatively unknowns when this film came out, and at least in terms of Snipes, I think he kind of steals the show. Kyle, tell me, when did you fall in love with this movie?
Oh, as a kid. I mean, listen, it's labeled as 89 coming out in the theater. And let's put it this way. My parents were a bit liberal with allowing me to watch certain things. Like, you know, if it had a lot of cursing in it or whatever, like, you know, I'm not going to be so vile as to say it had cursing in it. They didn't give a No, it's not like that. They knew that I could handle it and I would not be one of these guys that would come home, you know, just letting loose every obscenity I could to get myself and them in any bit of trouble, you know. But yeah,
this film is even better about it because not only is there cursing, there's subtitle cursing. So you walk out not only knowing how to say it, but knowing how to spell it. So it's educational.
Yes, you can actually learn shitty in Japanese by way of this movie. No, that's a good point by you.
I saw it once as a kid, and I saw it on television. So I saw the edited hack to bits mutilated version that they aired.
If I got to stop you here to let you know that if this is the one thing this movie is guilty of, and it's not even this movie, it's just associated with it. It's the worst editing I've ever seen in my life, right? Because back then, they hadn't really figured out how to come up with a good editing for MFer. I'm not going to just straight up say motherfucker because I know that Demos is going to have to bleep it out. Just like it made him do. And I'm sure to himself, he's shouting out MFer as I just literally did that to kind of screw him over. But whatever Demos does to edit that out, there's a line in the film where Corbin Bernsen comes up and goes, strike this mother out. Okay. No lie. The edit looks and sounds like this. Strike this guy out. It sounds literally that bad. I am not making this up. This actually happened on USA Network for those who can, you know, remember when that was still a thing that was relevant beyond the WWE. That was exactly how it sounded, and it was horrible.
Oh, at least they went for something as banal as Guy. It's when they replace it with something completely out there that it just becomes far more hilarious, like Yippee-ki-yay, Mickey Mouse, or
enough is enough. I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
I have to give them credit for coming up with something
that's creative. It really is. It the hell out of Guy. I'm just saying. I really think the movie holds up pretty strong nowadays, other than the fact these people don't have damn cell phones.
Watching it again through a more mature eye, I did enjoy the film. I thought it held up very well. The story is, it's dated as far as technology and the way that some things are delivered, but it's an evergreen story. The thing that I found very interesting, and the thing that certainly holds true to today's respects, is the film's kind of focus on blue collar fans. It never came off. There are a lot of other sports films that when they decide to show the fans, they go way out there. They decide to go crazy. They make fun of the fans. And this film, although there is a little bit of joviality in it, there's genuine respect for the fans, and I found it refreshing.
It's not at their expense. No, that's certainly true. And I like how you make that point. First of all, if you're going to go for blue collar in sports, there's generally 3 cities you go to: Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. You could probably throw Detroit in there, but I'm not going to. But in this case, they have Cleveland, due to the fact that a lot of their franchises are so damn snake bitten, and if it weren't for LeBron James, they'd have a whole lot of not too much.
I was a little surprised because when I saw Charlie Sheen's name on the cover, I'm like, okay, well, this movie is going to be about Charlie Sheen, and I was actually a little shocked that he's a bit downplayed.
Ricky Vaughn exists for two reasons. One, you need that rookie who's overcoming some sort of a plight and is a good story. Listen, other than the fact that he says F so much, Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn could in fact be a Disney movie if written the right way, right? It's a rags to riches kind of, I shouldn't say rags to riches. It's kind of him going from
jailbird to riches, really.
Yeah, okay, whatever, you know. I mean, the best thing about Major League 2 is Ricky Vaughn, in my opinion, has the most complete arc between the first movie and the second. You see him as just a dude who was playing in the California Penal League previously. No, that has nothing to do with the male anatomy. I mean, he was in jail, okay? But then you see what success has wrought, because somebody who does what Ricky Wild Thing does to improve renders obviously a huge ass contract, and things getting pumped up a little bit, and his ability to handle that is thrown into question. And it's a story we've seen tons of times in any sport, regardless of what ball they throw or what puck they shoot or what court they play on or field or whatever. But Ricky Vaughn is definitely, you got your story there. You're another plucky rookie guy who comes into play there. Wesley Snipes as Willie Mays Hayes. Willie Mays Hayes is a guy who wants to be a showboat, but realizes he can't yet because he's too young. And then as they get old, as a player gets older, he starts to showboat more and more and does a little too much. Another pretty strong arc from the first movie to the second, but the change in cast from Snipes to Omar Epps in the second movie, it didn't work, which is why Omar Epps then retired from acting before taking a job coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers and then going to work on House later on in his acting career. That's a joke because Omar Epps looks like Mike Tomlin. Anyway.
Well, I will say I've actually never seen the sequel, possible future episode. I will say that Snipes stole the show. Going into a film and seeing the name Wesley Snipes, you would not expect this character from today, at least from the fame that he built on since Blade. And I thought that he brought so much energy and wit and guile to the role. I thought he was a lot of fun to watch.
Well, and that's the thing. He's a popular. He became popular from this movie. And Willie Mays Hayes is a showy guy. Back when this was made in the late 80s, no one could picture a white guy pulling off what Wesley Snipes did. But yet by the same token, it's not like race really comes up. In sport, the beauty of it, the reason why I would encourage, parents to have their children participate in it, what have you, is it breaks boundaries like no other activity. This is the guy you're supposed to like. This is the guy you're supposed to understand mostly the trials and tribulations of a player trying to get to the big leagues. Now, this is kind of like, this romanticizes that kind of the same way Pirates of the Caribbean romanticizes piracy. But this is what he's there for, and it lands. Now you got your veteran guys in there, but I like also, again, there's a racial dynamic there because it's between Roger Dorn, Corbin Bernsen's character, and Wesley Snipes, as well as Ricky Vaughn, Charlie Sheen's character. You get a bit of a class thing going on with the player. How is it they say about when Dorn first comes in? The manager, Lou Brown, says, I thought you didn't have any high-priced talent. Forgot about Dorn because he's only high-priced. Listen, if that isn't an excellent commentary on how things can go horribly wrong in dealing with contracts in sport, I don't know what is, and it's the most efficient way I've seen it expressed, period.
I think one of the turnoffs I have most from sports films, not just the fact that a lot of them follow a very, very, very similar formula. Does Major League follow this to a degree? Yes, I would say so, but I think that the things that it does with its characters offset it, make it something a little bit more unique.
So the whole premise of this team being put together to relocate the team to Miami by way of the owner who inherited by way of her husband. Rachel Phelps puts this team together thinking she's got a bunch of dopes, but then there are certain elements that are in place that just happen to accidentally work. Sheriff Berenger is 150 bazillion years old in baseball years, but he has all this wisdom to impart with a guy who can throw, 90-something miles per hour. He's just friggin' blind and doesn't know it yet.
I thought that Lou Brown was very refreshing.
Yeah, no, Lou Brown is an excellent coach, and really he would be dubbed as a player's manager in baseball. To have a manager like that relates to the players, that works with them as such, is really something that's had success in the past.
I think the only coach I've ever seen in a movie, at least a good quality sports movie that I can compare, and only slightly, really, because it's a very different take on a character as well, is Walter Matthau in The Bad News Bears.
Yeah, no, that's a great comparison by you. And I'll tell you, the one good thing about Major League 2 is I could argue two of Lou Brown's best scenes are actually in Major League 2. Not that he doesn't have good ones here, but his two best scenes are actually in Major League 2. The problem with Major League 2 is, well, we won't get into that movie now, but the punchline is, yeah, Lou Brown's a great character, and of course, like any good manager should, he's the glue that puts it all together for the Indians.
And of course, we've already discussed the fact that this is a trilogy. Have you seen all three films?
I have.
Okay. There's the one connective piece between all three is the sportscaster Harry Doyle, played by Bob Uecker. This is the type of role that has been copied to death since.
Well, in his time, Bob Uecker was far more edgy, where now, to your point, it's more kind of run of the mill. And I would even argue there's certain people and certain elements that exist now that may borrow from Bob Uecker, who plays Harry Doyle. But like you can tell in the movie, he's a personality that's supposed to be catering to the local area. He's definitely this is like the fledgling years of sports radio, right? He's hosting something called, and this is TP Talk, right? In case you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance, going on and on, talking about the Indians like that is something that was really still experimental. And now you got dip dudes like me that got started doing their thing, be it in sports or pop culture or whatever, having a friggin' microphone in their bedroom, thinking they can do it better.
We see, I read an experiment, and I tend to do this if I'm ever in a position where I have to break down a sports film, and especially if it involves a sportscaster. I went back and I played one of the montages that kind of focused on him calling a game, and I walked out of the room, and I wanted to see if I could picture in my head what he was calling. Now, mind you, I had only seen the film. I saw it once as a kid, barely remembered it. I just saw it for the first time again last week, and so I did this today. I didn't remember the scene very well, so I said I want to see if I can actually follow along. And God damn it, I can follow along better than I can modern day sportscasters. So what does that say?
Well, and even still, the actual jubilation at the end of the movie, when the formula is completed, that he has in the booth, just going completely nuts that it all went that way. That's a real moment too. Listen, as much as personalities are supposed to be impartial, you can't help but see people get excited to follow a team that's doing well. There is a unique experience of being in a press box covering a team, and you know who your homers are, and you know who your journalists are, simply by watching the interactions in the press box.
I think the weakest aspect of the film for me, and that is the Rene Russo romance. It's the one thing that kind of fell apart, and at times, I have to admit, were kind of creepy. The stalking her to her home, and the cheating on the fiance, or even the cheating on the wife later. It kind of becomes a running theme in this film. But the Rene Russo romance is the it's nothing against her. I think she's fine in the film, but it feels like it's there out of necessity.
Right. Some studio exec says, hey, we got to have something there for the chicks too, right? As sexist as that sounds, that's probably the way the marketeer in the room would have described that the movie needs to get that draw, come for the romance. but be entertained by the comedy, because I think that comedy transcends any sort of gender boundary. You know, my mom, who is no sports fan, who is no sports participant, finds it funny. My wife, who is no athlete, she's an engineer, finds the movie funny and understands its place in the movie lexicon. So that being said, that doesn't necessarily get their butt in the seat in the theater in 1989, right? But the part that I think needs to be addressed is, while some of those scenes you are very inclined to fast forward through, they handle it in such a fashion to where there's good comedy to get things going, right? There's the first, like we mentioned, there's some creepy elements, but we're also told early on that, hey, these two have known each other for a long ass time. So he has every good excuse. It's no different than going to find a buddy, you know. Now, granted, obviously, Berenger's aim is a bit more romantic in nature, no question.
Well, it also bites him in the ass at one point.
It does, in a couple ways, and you know, that is what it is. But some of that gets particularly funny.
The Moby Dick aspect, I thought was freaking hilarious.
That was done well, I agree. But the funniest part is when he ends up at the party in the other man's penthouse, right? Mm-hmm. Tom, or whatever his name is, which, by the way, that they did an excellent job of casting a guy who was basically lifeless and needed a good firm punch in the face. Damn it, he was too pretty. But that's the point. If you're prettier than a baseball player, Demos, that should tell you. I'm joking. But
what?
You're going to show a clip up there. They're going to see his face, and anybody who was offended by that statement would understand immediately. Again, this is one of these things where you may have an element or two like that in there that might keep it from holding up nowadays, but there's little devices in there that keep it holding up. You know, there's one where he's coming home, like they're talking and he's trying to catch up with her, and he takes the bullpen car. As ridiculous as that is, that's pretty funny, where he's rolling up in a car shaped like a baseball.
No,
you know,
that's hilarious. And also the fact that nobody locks their doors in Cleveland, but
right, exactly. There are some leaps of faith, but hey, listen, you know, if you can believe that somebody can just, you know, pirouette out a window to hurl themselves to their doom in vertigo, you can believe somebody leaving a few doors unlocked. I'm just saying.
I've been to Cleveland. I think that people would be more apt to lock their doors. I actually really like Cleveland. I've been there twice this year. Surprisingly, great Greek gyros. Probably the best I've had in America, which is shocking. If you're a gyro owner and you want my endorsement, I'm free for samples, and I'll let you know. Anyway,
Euro hero, is that it? You're the Euro hero?
Yes, I am the Euro hero. I thought some of the comedy worked out great. I love some of the gags. It wasn't as slapstick as you may expect from sports comedies, especially once it came after Major League. You didn't have the two players running to catch a ball and smashing into each other, because God knows how many films you've seen that in.
Actually,
they got close.
It's something that's in the montage of Spring Break, but it's not something that's a focal point to your description. Absolutely.
You see them running towards the ball, but they never have like the crash and the Home Alone swoop up and they're falling on their backs. I think slapstick is something that can work very well if it's used a little bit more sporadically, like the baseball bat hitting the pitcher in the head. I thought that was freaking hilarious.
Do you see the depth there? That the main slapstick in the movie, the guy is literally slapped with a stick. This is probably the best sports comedy, if not the best comedy outright, in a lot of people's lists. And just in our exchange here, I can already feel you we're picking out things that you or I hadn't even thought of yet. And you know, granted, you've only seen the movie one other time. I'm damn near 30 years vested in this mofo, and there's so much in it that works ridiculously well. The only thing that's slightly weak is, you know, some of the romance scenes, which are indeed forced in. But hey, listen, for something that's crowbarred in just to make sure the studio got their marketing in, they're all still pretty damn good. yes, Demos, you're going to get pissed, but the fact of the matter is this, because of its standing and what it is, if you're any sort of a comedy movie fan, you have to have seen this movie. And if you don't, you are in fact the problem, period.
As a guy who's not a fan of sports movies in general, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it held up very well. I thought that a lot of its core story was evergreen. I thought its characters were actually pretty great. I think by focusing quite a bit on the fans' interpretation of what's going on, I actually became a lot more invested and started seeing it through their eyes. And I'm just so sick of so many movies. And yeah, are there crazy fans out there? The ones that deck themselves out in body paint and do some outrageous things? Yeah, there are. And you see some of that in this film too. But I just felt that it just came from a more genuine, more real place. And it allowed me, because it did so, it allowed me to see it from their perspective rather than taking a step back and looking and laughing at them. And I think that's one of the main reasons I recommend this film, actually.
No,
because if you think about the opening, the entire opening of this film is a typical to a comedy. You have that slow-moving, almost morose Randy Newman song playing over the city streets of Cleveland, and you're seeing it from the working man's eye. You're seeing the beautiful cityscape, and suddenly you're seeing smoke from the factories and so forth. It's a typical opening for a comedy. So from the very, very beginning of this film, you're seeing it through the lens of these fans. And I think that's, even though it does play out to formula, I think that was a very interesting perspective to take. Yeah, there are comedy bits throughout the film. Nothing crazily outrageous. Maybe the voodoo might be the most outrageous thing in the film, but even then, it's a comedy. It's not completely outside the realm of possibility.
Bringing up the cutout of the owner wasn't a little.
Yeah,
anyway.
well, even that is. I mean, like I said, it's a comedy, but there's nothing. There's nothing that you say that will never happen in real life. But I think that's the thing, because the opening perspective of the film just came from such a genuine, more realistic human place. When I see scenes that feel more constructed or more shoved in there, such as some of the romantic scenes of the film, it takes me more out of the film because it's in contradiction with the way it was set up. That's just me. If you're looking for a film in the sports genre, yeah, I would say this is required viewing within that genre. If you're gonna talk to me about baseball, yes, it's required viewing there. If you're looking at motion pictures as a whole, which is kind of the modus operandi behind us asking this question. We're not just looking at it through the eyes of one genre. We're looking at it for the big picture. There are elements of the film that I did touch upon, such as the romance and so forth, that give me pause to say it's required viewing. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I think it's a very well done film. It's a pretty well constructed comedy, and despite the fact that it takes a predicted route, there are enough. This word, I need to say this because it's become a kind of a joke since the days of Last Jedi, when you say it subverted your expectations.
No, it's just non-traditional methods of completing the formula, right? That's what I would have called it.
I think that's a fantastic way of putting it. This is actually one of the films where the corporate sponsorship was actually funny. The American Express commercial is utterly brilliant. Once again, it's one of those scenes that doesn't go over the top. It actually plays it pretty damn straight, and it works.
And they do ads like that in Major League 2. Again, nailed just as well as that. I keep mentioning Major League 2 because, again, where I think this transcends just being a sports comedy into actually being a comedy. In the second movie, there's things they actually try to build on and that work as a continuing gag. Major League 2 is not as good as it should be, and it's basically, to me, the same as a System of a Down. Is just not as good as they should be. And let's be honest, one of the best scenes in the movie is where they start blaring Wild Thing that last time, and you hear Rachel Phelps go,
"I hate this song."
You know, the funny thing is, I beat her by like 10 seconds.
Well, the beauty of it is well, I know you genuinely don't like it, but it's different. I don't think I've seen somebody dressed that professionally and dolled up that well, man, woman, or otherwise, deliver a with the bile and vitriol and genuine anger. I hate this song, and I hate the way that you're gonna have to bleep this, but I mean, it's not my fault that that's the line. The punchline is this: the way she's done up as a high class person, and then drops that to subvert the expectation is gold. And I've never even heard the word uttered with such.
But that's interesting, because I like the delivery in that, because honestly, when people get angry and they use the F word, there's enunciation in that word that you rarely see in movies. It's like they want to get past it nowadays. They want to get past the F word. There's no relish behind the use of obscenity that you find in real life. And when it's done well in a film, I think the only one, there's another one that jumps to mind, but this is more of an exasperated, is Alec Baldwin in The Aviator is one that pops out. But
yeah, no, well, I mean, we could have a whole episode of fantastic executions of the word, but the punchline is, yeah, in this instance, relish is a good word. The way she dropped that is relish on the hot dog of her frustration. #baseball. Boom.
Apparently, the key word of this episode is relish, which is perfect because relish is found in hot dogs, which I found in baseball stadiums, which brings this whole episode full circle
to how wrong Demos is. I mean, what?
No! God damn it. Well, I guess we're just going to have to agree, disagree. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of Major League? Did you think it's required viewing, or are you wiser and perhaps a little bit more open to the world as I am, and just think it's a very, very good film, highly recommended? Or
does the resists Rogue One anyways?
Rogue One is an okay movie.
Here we go. Anyways,
let us, or if you hate it, there are people out there that probably hate Major League. Let us know in the comments. Yeah,
they're more you. Does that help that they're more wrong than
this
you?
This is from the guy that one time told me that baseball wasn't even a sport.
It's not, but that's a different show. Okay, listen.
You're very welcome.
That's why it works as a comedy. It's not.
Oh, ow, ouch. I'm going to let that stand. Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to follow me on hilaritybydefault.com, where we have fun stuff every week. Follow me on Twitter @defaulthilarity, on Facebook and Instagram, Hilarity by Default. Kyle, where can we find you?
And of course, you can find me on Twitter as the SOTG, and of course, Instagram as the same, and then also on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my writings on Blue HQ Sports Media Pass and Break the Fourth, where you'll also see posted Dinner Time. That's right. This past week, Demos and I did an episode of Dinner Time, and while you can find that on either Blue HQ site now officially, on Break the Fourth, then you can catch my football writings, UCF, on Sports Media Pass, and I also cover the Miami Dolphins for the Dolphins Wire of USA Today. Great episode, Demos. I think we hit this one out of the park.
All I can say is play ball. Next week, we're doing Major League 2.
Wait, what?
Hell yeah. After everything we just talked about, I said I was going to get back to it. Yeah, we're doing Major League 2 next week.
And whatever you actually criticize, to be honest, I'll probably agree with you on that one, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Who knows? I may like it better. I doubt it, but who knows? Make sure to check us out every Thursday right here on Default, where life is hilarious by default.